What's going on, guys? Today's video we are going to be changing the oil on a 1996 G30 van. The same method is going to apply to a lot of your older Chevys with the 350 TBI. It should be in a similar location. Only thing difference is going to be oil filter, etc. I'll show you exactly which one I'm using in my 96 G30, and let's go ahead and begin here. Now, I have ran this earlier today and I just had the engine running for a little bit, so sometimes it is nice to have the engine oil warm to hot, like a normal driving, like you're pulling into a Jiffy Lube, etc. We're going to go ahead and put the pan below, some cardboard, don't want to drip on my little cement entry here. And if you are wondering, the engine oil dipstick is going to be right over here on the left-hand side, right-hand side of your coolant expansion tank right here. I got a lot of other videos, just fixed a nasty squeak on my power steering pump. I was just low on fluid, so that definitely was a nice save. It didn't cost me very much to get that up and running. Okay, so once again, your dipstick's right here. We're going to go below the van, and we want to go ahead and remove the screw and dump the oil before we do try to remove the oil filter. The reason being is you don't want to remove the oil filter if you can't get the screw off, because absolute worst case scenario, if you go underneath and your oil filter has seized up on you, you can go ahead and just put back the screw, fill it back up. You'll have a dirty oil filter until you can get to a proper shop or get a proper wrench to unseize it. So let's go ahead and go below the van with our gloves, eye protection, oil pan, and some cardboard just in case we do get some drips. All right, the particular oil I'm switching this van over to a full synthetic extended performance high mileage 5W30, and we'll be changing it. Some people run it, 7,500 miles, something like that. I'm going to be doing it at probably about 4,000 to 5,000 miles, but go ahead and play it out how you particularly want to do it. Most of the time the oil's still good, the filter goes bad on you, so typically the filter won't last as long as the oil. Anywho, or go by time in regards to months, especially if you don't drive it, but definitely do your own research as well. This is just particularly what I'm going to be doing. For the oil filter, I'm going to be using the PH5, and again, I'll have it linked in the description box below, the oil and the filter as well. We got our underneath roller, and we have our nice 16 quart. I'll have this linked in the description box below as well. And what's nice about this van is even though I do have a lift in the shop behind me, I'm thin enough I can lay on this, slide right underneath, so we're good to go. Let's go ahead and get the proper size socket, and we'll let you know what that is. Okay, so right over here by your exhaust pipes, right behind your tires here, there's your passenger tire right here. So just come in the middle of the tires. You're gonna go ahead and see the black little jug here, and that obviously is where your oil is held. Right up next to it, to the right, is going to be your filter, and that's a very old filter. Looks like it's actually dripping, probably because it's really old. So remember, put your pan off to the side, because what's going to happen is once you remove that screw, it's going to start flowing really freely, so it might actually jump over. So go ahead and put it a little bit off to the right underneath. That way it starts to flow beautifully, but then once it starts to drain entirely, it's going to start dripping out right underneath it. So you definitely want to move it back towards right directly underneath it. But we're going to go ahead and remove this screw first before we remove the oil filter. We definitely want to make sure that the screw is not seized, and we can break that loose, and then we'll work on the oil filter after that. All right, so here's a little trick for you here. Lightly, well, not lightly, but medium, but just make sure you don't strip your nut there. Screw, nut, whatever you want to call it. Mine was seized on there pretty bad. Shot it with a little bit of penetrating oil, and then using the back side of your wrench here, go ahead and again push that on there. It's a 15 mil if you are wondering, and then go ahead and hit this side right here with your hammer. That's going to give you a little bit of good leverage. Just make sure you do not strip that. So what I do is I hold it nice and tight on there and then bang it with the hammer. That's going to loosen it up really nicely. That was on there really tight. So I'm going to go ahead and get my socket now, my 15 mil. Go ahead and loosen that guy on up. Okay, we're getting a nice little pour here, nice and dirty. I like what I'm seeing. So a little heads up for you here is if you are going to be using this particular one, go ahead and open up this little cap here. Well, it is flowing in there. If not, it's going to be doing a little bit of burping on you and spitting a few little droplets of oil. Okay, we're still dripping out here. We're going to wait a few more minutes and just let that fully just go ahead and get all that old oil out of there. And then after that is done, go ahead and get a lint-free rag, clean around the circle area of where the washer kind of compresses up against it. And then we're also We're going to be cleaning off the end of our bolt here. I'm just going to call it a bolt. We're going to clean off the end of it and also look for shards of metal. If you're having shards of metal, what it's doing is it's draining all the way to the plug there. So we want to go ahead and clean this off, clean off the little washer head there as well. It's all just attached into one unit. We'll clean that with a lint-free rag. We'll go ahead and put that back in. We'll tighten it down to nice and German strength. We're not going to overdo it. You can get out the spec sheet if you really want to. But we're not going to crank the bolt head off, but we're going to go ahead and tighten it down pretty good. And then, after we do that, we're going to go ahead and reach up here and we're going to go ahead and hopefully get this oil filter off a little bit easier than we got that oil drain plug off. Okay, now with your cleaned off, we're looking absolutely fantastic. Now it's time to go ahead and work on our oil filter here. Now this could get a little bit messy, and particularly most of the time it is. So go ahead and put down a little bit more of a splash guard if you need to, because as you're unscrewing this, what's going to happen is it could get all over your hands and get pretty messy. So go ahead and put this in a proper area here, and I'm using gloves, and I would also wear eye protection as well. And we're going to go ahead and do this pretty quickly, but first we need to get a good grip on it to loosen. Okay, I definitely wear gloves because it takes a while to unscrew that, and as you're unscrewing it, there's actually quite a bit of oil in there because it's kind of a large oil filter, and I got it all over my glove, but thank goodness I did have a glove on, saving my hand from a completely oily hand. And again, a little bit of a splash mat. Looks like I got a few little trickles on the cement. No harm, no foul. We'll go ahead and put a little bit of kitty litter on that there. A couple of those little spots right there. Oil filters right there. Go ahead and recycle that as well. And everything looks good here. So we're going to go ahead and insert our new oil filter. Just push it straight up and then screw it on nice and hand. Before we do insert the new oil filter, we want to go ahead and take some fresh oil and we want to go ahead and put it right around the rubber gasket, all the way around with some fresh oil. Doesn't have to be dripping, but you definitely want to lubricate that rubber seal before we do insert it. Okay, we got it up there, screwed it on. Put it on nice and hand tight. Screw it up really nicely with that traction in there, as we can see. Double check your oil drain plug as well. And then we're going to go up top. Now, something I forgot to mention here, next to your window washing fluid station is your oil fill. And this is the top of it here. It's just kind of this little suction thing here. It doesn't really screw on. It just kind of pops off and pops back on. Some people do remove that as it is draining for better flow, kind of air going through it, and it just kind of just drains a little quicker. Okay, make a long story, it's the next day now. I filled up the full 5 quarts into my pour spout right here. I checked it last night before I ran the engine, and I was getting a reading like way up above right here. Now, if you can clearly see, which is a little bit tricky, there's an arrow right here, and it says operating temperature right down here with an arrow right past this third circle. That's the maximum you want to fill it to. Make a long story short, I was getting a clear reading all the way up to about right here where my fingernail was. Ran the van for a minute last night, turned it off, started checking it, and it came in at the second hole. Now, after running it all day, I'm checking it, and it's at the third hole. So you just need to trust your instincts. If you drain 5 quarts, this is a 5.1 quart capacity, and so 5 quarts should do it. If you're unsure, if you've drained everything out, fill it up with 4.5 quarts, check it, but I think you're going to be okay with 5. Anyway, make a long story short, after last night, I was thinking I needed to add half a quart, but now it's reading right on the dot for maximum fill range with using only a 5 quart jug. So I have another one on hand. You probably saw in the beginning of the video. I'll just have that for next oil change. And so that's it. After that, your van should be up and running very, very smoothly. I would highly recommend switching over to Mobil 1, fully synthetic high mileage, especially if your van like mine is at 232K miles. If you wouldn't mind hitting that thumbs up button on the way out, helps the channel and YouTube algorithm. Also look in your description box below for tools and tips that I've used for this particular job. Definitely subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. We'll see you on the next one. Take care for now. Bye-bye. Don't let the party stop, guys. Hit one of these videos, continue to watch, and we'll see you soon.